Nile River, the longest river in the world, is the source of life for more than 90 million people, both in the upper and lower riparian countries. For several centuries, these people, along the course of the river, sustained their livelihoods using the water. In Egypt, one of the largest man-made lakes is created as a result of the construction of the Aswan High Dam across the waters of the Nile. Recreation and sport fishing on the lake are some of the benefits Egyptians gain apart from its contribution for tourism and agriculture. In the contrary, looking at the country that contributes 80% of the water for the Nile, one sees another scenario. Ethiopia, one of the upper riparian countries, has benefited nil from the river. The country has long been saluting the river that moves along with its soil. Past regimes had done nothing to utilize it, rather preferred listening to songs about the Nile. The Nile Valley is also the source of ancient civilization that descends from generation to generation. For Ethiopians and Egyptians, the Nile water has created unbreakable bondage.
The relation between Egypt and Ethiopia is like a very old marriage with no possibility of divorce. Like all old marriages with no possibility of divorce, it has its ups and downs, but it is very solid and it is of long standing.
The year 2011 saw history change itself. The new generation proved the Nile could also be utilized to benefit Ethiopia. April the 2nd, a turning point in the history of Ethiopia. Former Ethiopian leader Meles Zenawi announced the commencement of construction of Ethiopia's Grand Renaissance hydropower dam, a day that initiated the whole country to promise that all possible sources will be utilized to realize the dam. The government of Ethiopia had no cash at hand to complete the dam, but was confident that the people could cover the billions-dollar project. The late premier confirmed that at the inaugural ceremony of the dam's construction.
Although we are poor, we are ready to fight our historical enemy, that's poverty. I have no doubt about the decision of Ethiopians in building this important project. The government is committed to mobilize the public in raising funds and savings in financial institutions. I call upon the people of Ethiopia to make history by building the largest dam in Africa.
The Premier's call has been answered by Ethiopians both at home and across the world. Purchasing saving bonds and raising funds from all Ethiopians continues to date. Four years went on. The project hits 40% completion. Its construction is underway 24/7 in Benishangul Gumuz state, located in the Ethio-Sudanese border. The dam, which will be the biggest in Africa when operational, requires $4 billion for its completion. The people are keeping their promises as the dam has been built without a single penny from international financial institutions or any other outside donation. With all this hard work happening in Ethiopia, tensions and suspicions have been escalating in the downstream countries of Egypt and Sudan, fearing the negative impact of the dam. This was heightened during the coming into power of Mohamed Morsi as president of Egypt. Ethiopia's claim that the dam will not harm these countries has not been accepted, particularly by Egypt. Egypt went to the level of refusing findings of the panel of experts who studied the case, despite its own representatives were members of the panel. Ethiopia has always adhered fair and equitable use of the Nile River among all riparian countries, though Egypt's stance seemed different. But the tide changed when Abdel Fattah el-Sisi won the presidential election of Egypt with landslide victory. The new president was heard saying the dam will not cause a crisis or a problem with sisterly Ethiopia. It did not take President el-Sisi that long to prove his words. During his maiden meeting with Ethiopian Premier Haile Mariam Desalegn on the sidelines of the 23rd Ordinary Summit of the African Union in Equatorial Guinea, he professed his government's readiness to work for mutual benefit. The 69th General Assembly of the UN at New York in September 2014 was Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's first UN General Assembly meeting to attend as head of state. On the sidelines of the 69th UN General Assembly, the second meeting between President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn broke the stalemate that persisted for several decades. The two leaders agreed to enhance mutual cooperation in multi-sectional areas, including the contentious dam project. President el-Sisi's initial plan to visit Ethiopia was incepted there. Seven months later, their relationship that was taking baby steps was seen standing still and walking big as the leaders of Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia met in Khartoum, Sudan to sign a historical agreement on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance hydropower dam. Ethiopian Premier Haile Mariam Desalegn, Sudanese President Omar Hassan al-Bashir and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi signed Declaration of Principles on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Hydroelectric Dam. As the Prime Minister noted, the signing of the agreement would benefit the people of the three riparian countries.
This Declaration of Principles is the foundation and is the basis upon which we will base our future agreements and decades.
The signing of the agreement, as President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi put, brings mutual trustship among the three countries.
This is the era of cooperation. Mutual trustship is the most important issue for the riparian countries. We need cooperation. We opted for cooperation and development. We opted for trusting each other. We need to work on cooperation and how to boost trust among ourselves.
The need to swim together rather than sing together is what the Sudanese President Omar Hassan al-Bashir highlighted after the signing ceremony.
It is possible to grow and develop together through cooperation. This will maintain peace and security in our region. In one hand, it will advance the interests of our country. On the other hand, it creates a favorable situation on our member states of Nile Basin Initiative come together and cooperate on the proper utilization of the Nile water.
Signing of the cooperation agreement shows Ethiopia's stand on fair use of the Nile River was appropriate, Prime Minister Hailemariam underscores.
በአጭር ጊዜም ወደዚህ አይነት ስምምነት ለመድረስ እንችላለን የሚል ታሳቢ አልነበረም።
Egypt has never agreed on the fair utilization of the Nile water among riparian states in the past. This stand had been causing problem to the country. Now we have agreed on fair utilization of the water among member countries of the Nile Basin Initiative in principle. According to this agreement, Ethiopia can use its water resources in a fair manner, including for the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Hydroelectric Dam.
30 years after an Egyptian leader paid an official visit to Ethiopia, President El-Sisi's aeroplane touched the ground of Bole International Airport on March 23rd. The president, who arrived right after the signing of Declaration of Principles in Khartoum, was warmly welcomed by Prime Minister Hailemariam upon arrival. As many believe, the historic visit of President El-Sisi to Ethiopia eases the tension and controversy between the two countries. It is a move that is believed to contribute here to scaling up their bilateral ties. With this in mind, the new Egyptian president began his official visit meeting Ethiopian President Dr. Mulatu Teshome and Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn. In his briefing to journalists, President El-Sisi noted about his successful deliberation with Ethiopian officials as it is based on a win-win principle and mutual benefits.
The Declaration of Principles includes 10 main pointers which guides the countries to utilize waters of Nile fairly and appropriately and inquire.
Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn admired the commitment and determination of President El-Sisi.
The most important progress we achieved is a political will and commitment from both sides to keep this momentum for the sake of our people, for the benefit of our both peoples, and to cement the ties, historic ties between our two peoples and countries.
The leaders gathering at the National Palace also agreed to upgrade the Ministerial Commission of Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia into a ministerial council. In a round of talks here in Addis Ababa, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi also met members of Ethiopian public diplomacy team on ways of enhancing people-to-people relations. According to Ethiopian ambassador to Egypt, Muhammad Dirir, the discussion is important to further bolster the historical ties of the two nations.
There has been a decision at high levels that the bilateral will be elevated to the president and prime minister level, and that every year it will take place either in Addis or in Cairo.
The trade and investment tie of Egypt and Ethiopia is at its infancy stage. That is why the latest visit of the Egyptian president made the issue among its main agendas. In a move to strengthen their business relations, President El-Sisi and Prime Minister Hailemariam met business persons of the two countries.
The current prevailing peace, stability, the democratic environment in Ethiopia, all these augur well that Ethiopia stands as a very prominent investment destination in Africa.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and his series of meetings have also met Patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, His Holiness Abuna Matthias, who has recently been to Egypt. Their discussion focused on robust ties which are reflected on the strong connection between Ethiopian Orthodox and the Egyptian Coptic Church. His Holiness Abuna Matthias raised the need to further develop the historical and religious ties of the two sisterly countries that would bring harmony more than ever. The meeting also reflected on the importance of religious fathers' roles in fighting extremism and terrorism. His Holiness Abuna Matthias expressed his heartfelt sympathy over the killings of 21 Egyptian Christians in Libya.
We condemn the terrorist acts committed on innocent Egyptians in Libya. We all were shocked when we heard the news. This is heartbreaking for all humanities across the globe.
The President and the Patriarch, who met in Cairo last January upon al-Sisi's invitation, held a fruitful discussion. Ethiopian Ambassador to Egypt, Mohammed Dirir, recalls their previous meeting.
In Egypt, Abu Namati has had the chance to meet President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who has hosted him to the palace. And the discussions, I have attended the discussions, were very fervent and very important.
President al-Sisi also held separate talks with representatives of Ethiopian Muslim religious leaders. Al-Sisi, before his departure, addressed the Ethiopian parliament. In his historic speech, the Egyptian head of government told the parliamentarians his hopes and ambitions for a better tomorrow.
I invite you today to build a better future for our children and grandchildren, a future where all the classrooms in Ethiopia are lit and all the children of Egypt drink from the river Nile, a future where the economies of both countries grow to absorb their manpower in a manner that allows their people a dignified living and realize surplus production for our countries.
The world is witnessing Ethiopia's renaissance as al-Sisi spoke.
لقد حان الوقت كي تتحقق نبوءة الزعيم الإفريقي العظيم
The time has come for realizing the prophecy of the great African leader, Nkrumah, regarding the renaissance of Ethiopia, that he launched at the end of the inaugural meeting of the Organization of African Unity more than 50 years ago. Egypt stands today in all determination besides Ethiopia to transform this prophecy to a sound reality.
In his inspiring speech, the President has spoken of greater opportunity to widen the horizon of bilateral cooperation and intensify commitment for the implementation of the Declaration of Principles signed among the three countries. President al-Sisi, who left on March 25th, opened a bright new horizon of cooperation between Ethiopia and Egypt. His desire for mutual benefit shows that Nile will no more be a reason of suspicion, but strong friendship.
وأنا حاولت بشكل أو بآخر
I tried one way or another to give
التساؤلات والقلق اللي موجود لدى أشقائكم في مصر.
to give a feeling, to convey also the inquiries and the concerns that are in the minds and hearts of your brothers and sisters in Egypt.
حتى لقائنا ده في التلفزيون.
Even with this interview in the TV, this is the first step.
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much.
تحياتي للشعب
And my greetings to the great Ethiopians.
وأتمنى لهم كل
And I
تقدم
wish
والازدهار.
them all prosperity and progress.
إحنا أشقاء.
We are brothers and sisters.
الدم اللي بيجري في أعضائنا.
We have the same blood in our veins.
من المية دي.
In Egypt and in Ethiopia, coming from that water from the Nile.
بنشكر ربنا على كده.
We thank God for that.